You can have it available if someone was unable to make it today.
I also am going to take some photos. If you don't want your photo taken, please, you can just let me know after and I won't use the photo.
Great. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you here for the Winter Sowing Workshop with Carrie Novak. Carrie, if you don't know, is one of our board members. She has her own farm, Partridgeville Farm, and she is a huge advocate for starting your seeds in winter with lots of experience, which I'll let her go into. But North County Land Trust, if you're not familiar with this already, land conservation in this region, north central Massachusetts, and we do lots of things. We do programming, but certainly our biggest focus is conserving the land in this area so that it can be saved in perpetuity, and lots of accessible trails on some public land that we're actually right across the street from one, Keys Conservation Area, which is one of our newest properties. But we do hikes, we do bird walks, we do indoor things, a whole variety of things, but we definitely rely on generous support from our members and from local businesses. So we are always looking to make more friends and invite more people to do all the things that we love to do. We do have a newsletter, so if you're interested in getting that, I can add to that list as well. But I don't want to take any time away from Carrie because we've got lots to do and lots to learn. Please pipe in if you need to. As I said before, restrooms are right here. Feel free to get up whenever you need to. We're so glad to have all of you here. Welcome. And I'll let Carrie take it away. Thank you, Carrie. Oh, yes, actually, thank you. She's so great. We have Emily Martino here also, who is our stewardship coordinator. She is just recently full-time, so she is the one that gets out there on those trails, makes sure everything is going well, works a lot with volunteers. So that's something that we are always looking for as well, helping out on those trails and some of our other special projects. So thank you, Emily, for being here as well. Did I say my own name? It's Lisa Adams. I'm the outreach coordinator, so I do all of the events and such. So again, welcome, and we're so glad to have you here. Thank you, Carrie.
Right. If somebody sees my phone go kind of blank, if you'd let me know, I guess that would be Jack and Colleen would be responsible for that. They are friends of mine. Jack has been keeping bees on our farm for a few years, and we usually set up our tables next to each other at the Templeton Farmers Market, which is held May to October, Thursdays, 4 to 7. I'm not plugging it. All right, I want to let you know a couple of the things that I have here. This stuff will be kind of self-evident once I get going what I have here. So I'm off screen. This is wonderful. I have a booklet. If you have not gotten one, please get one. You can have two to a family. They're going really inexpensive right now. And also, you may have received that in your email. The one in the email is color. I got a little cheap. The price difference was like $200 to do this in color. So I have a variety of seed catalogs that you're welcome to look at. Please don't take them because these are my active seed catalogs that I'm using and I sometimes refer to because it's like having textbooks right here for you. These are the ones I do order online also, so I wouldn't have a physical catalog for those. So some of the ones that I'm really, really fond of is Prairie Moon. They're out of, I think it's Minnesota, and they do all native perennial plants. So this is a great one. When we were working on a project on the dwelling farm in Templeton, this is where I got my seeds. So the native seeds where we're trying to do a pollinator habitat. This is a great one. This is a really fun little company out of Vermont. It's called Le Jardin du Gourmet. Give me a chance to practice French. All herbs, and you can get $1 seed packets. So if you just want to try something, this is a really great catalog. The rest of them are fairly self-evident. I love Seed Savers Exchange because on a personal basis, this company or this nonprofit helped us save my grandfather's heirloom popcorn. It was just about going extinct, and they interviewed my mother. They found some cousins that had been saving it, and then they've been storing it in a vault. They have a seed vault. So I really like this company. Out of Canada, another wonderful herb catalog. So much information. That's why I love these things. So take a look at your leisure if you want to look through, or maybe, take a picture of the address if you want to order yourself. Okay, so this is seeds. This hat is just some extras of seeds that I have saved myself that I'm happy to share with you. I have some little measuring spoons, some bags, some things like that. So either today or at a later time, if you want some of these, have at them. There's some fun stuff like hostas and trumpet vine and milkweed and all sorts of fun stuff. Over here are seeds that I am not going to use. I am not going to be planting these. I would be even really excited if at the end of today, these were empty. Take as many as you wish. For yourself, for your friends, for your enemies. I'm not going to need them. So they could go to waste. So the 10s, okay? And these, maybe I'll help you, with what you want. So that's that table. Our lovely assistant, Vanna White, is up. My partner in crime at the Partridgeville Farm. All right. So what I thought maybe would be a good idea, since I could ramble, and I probably still will, is if I kind of stuck to my booklet. I am not going to read to you because I know y'all can read, but it's going to help me kind of keep on focus. Number one, if you want to ask a question, please ask a question. It's not going to be one of these, wait to the end to ask, because then you might forget. Or, if I'm going to get to it, I'll just tell you, oh yeah, good question, I'm going to get to it. And this has to be fun, right? It's gardening. And if gardening is stressful, then I really don't know what the point is. This should be something that helps alleviate stress. It gets you excited. And at least that's what it is for me. So anything we do today, I am not a scientist. So there's going to be no bringing out a ruler and making sure you have the right distance of soil, or, measuring the soil to make sure there's not too much water. We're really going to be kind of not loosey-goosey, but don't stress about things, just don't worry about them. I'm just going to give you the principles. So why are we here? We're here to talk about winter sowing. And in case you aren't familiar what that is, it is the process of sowing seeds in the winter in containers that are designed to be mini greenhouses that get left outside, hopefully in the snow, maybe in the rain, that will germinate when Mother Nature decides they should germinate. So this whole kind of movement of winter sowing is really starting to take off, but it's only probably about 10 years old. It was started by an extension agent in the Minnesota area who then moved to upstate New York. And since then, if you Google it, you're going to find that there's lots of little events like this on Zoom or Facebook or whatever. So it's really starting to take off. A lot of extension people are kind of getting into it. So one question I see that we get on the forums is a lot is, why go through all this fuss? Why don't you just plant those seeds in your garden, in May or maybe late April or whatever? And the easy answer to that is, weeds, wind, birds, animals, and forgetting. So if you were to decide, well, I would like to grow some, what's an easy thing to grow? Garlic chives. I like garlic chives because they grow really well and I can't kill them. So say you decided, oh, I really want to grow garlic chives. So if you prepared an area in your garden and you planted them in May, they might germinate. Or a squirrel might come by and take the seeds, or some really fast growing grass might come up and sort of make it unable for you to, for them to sprout, or maybe there wouldn't be enough water, or maybe there'd be too much water. You kind of get the point. This is a way to control the seedlings, so you've got a better chance that this is going to be successful. Or you could go to the garden center and you could buy garlic chive seedlings, or maybe not, because I'm not sure I've seen them for sale. It's another thing. Wow, you can start stuff. If you notice in the seed catalogs, there's seeds that are for sale that you might not see in a regular garden shop. So it's kind of cool because then you can have the exact color you want, or you can have the variety or whatever for anywhere from $1.99 to $3.50, depending upon how expensive the seeds are. There's also, if you're a frequent Facebook user, lots of seed trading groups. And where, you know, say you have a lot of garlic chives and you'd like some arugula, you can trade those. So it's a great way to kind of get some seeds that maybe at a little bit lower cost than buying them. So that's one reason to winter sow, is just because it feels like for a lot of varieties, it's more successful than just planting it out in your garden in the spring. Another reason you might want to winter sow is, say you wanted to grow a lot of things. Like this year, I'm growing a lot of herbs for the market, and I don't have enough inside space. I have an unheated greenhouse, but I don't have enough area in that unheated greenhouse. Plus, I'm not going to pay for heat to start everything that I want. It's just too expensive to do that. The other thing is, I don't know if you've ever started some tomatoes inside, and then when you get outside, you know, when it starts to see the non-protected environment, your stems are kind of a little bit weak. Well, when you winter sow something, you put your seed in the dirt, you know, anywhere from February through April in your container. And when it germinates and it has to acclimate back and forth with the weather, it's pretty sturdy. I mean, when you go to transplant that thing, it's been through everything that Mother Nature can give to it. And it may be smaller than something that you buy at the garden center, but it's gonna catch up much faster because it's so sturdy, and it's gonna be healthier. And you're gonna know the variety. Another reason why it's a good idea is everything here, with a few exceptions, is a recycled container. Great way to use a recycled container. So it's good in that way. It allows you to breathe in the smell of dirt in January. And I don't know about you, but man, I miss that smell. And so it's really nice to have that, to be able to smell that. And then I often say in May, when I start to open all this stuff, and sometimes late April, it's like Christmas, you know? It's like you're opening your container and you're going, oh, my Alyssum is here. Oh, whatever I'm growing. It just feels like you're getting presents whenever you're opening them up. I have found every year I grow lavender this way, and I have found that I had not been able to grow it before. I would have to buy it. But I have been very successful. So every year I grow more and more and more, so I can have more and more lavender. It just becomes really hardy. And so that's about it. So those are pretty much the reasons why this is a good method. You don't have to be crazy and do 500 containers or 100 or 50. You can do 3. You can do 1. You can, don't be crazy like me. And do more than I can possibly keep up with. Because I've had some fails. I know that they say, oh, this is a fail-safe way. Nothing for me is fail-safe. But I know most of the time why I have failed. So when you have so many, it's bound that you're not taking care of everything great. So your first year, do less than 500. That's my advice. All right. So I tried to have a representation of pretty much everything that I have used. This is how it all started. Milk jugs. This was the original winter sow container. And if you look at this, you'll say, oh, mercy, it's dirty. I reuse my containers. I don't fuss about cleaning them. I store them. I store them in my basement, and if I can just. So I use bungees, and I put them through the handles of my unused containers or my either brand new or used containers, and I hang them from the rafters in my basement. It looks like a scene from the movie Coma, with all the hanging bodies. So yeah, it's creepy, but it's a way to keep them off the floor. You don't have to reuse your containers. I think that if I have already drilled my holes and I have cut my openings, I'm thinking that's a win because I can just, shove the dirt and go. I don't have to prepare another one. These containers are starting to get thinner. I suspect that, maybe the manufacturers are trying to save some money. So I have some that have lasted 4 years. And I have some that are very thin and seem to break the first year. So after I got over my sadness, I then realized if the top broke off, I still have this bottom, and the bottoms seem to be maybe made a little bit better. So they came apart at the hinge, and we'll go over that in a bit. And then I either slip this into a bag or I put, you're gonna love these things. I love these things. Look at this. It looks like a plastic worm, right? It's a hairnet or a food net. I'll put the dirt and then I'll put this over here. And that's going to work for me. I'm going to make slits. I'll go over that. They say I can reuse these. We'll see. It's my first year. All right. So standard, the original, the one everybody talks about. Peanut butter containers. They're too wide, so you have to cover them with a bag or saran wrap or an old clear shower curtain held together or something. So this is too wide to leave like this, but these are nice, because you can put your hand in to get your seedlings out. A milk carton, after you take this top off, you don't have to cover it with anything else. Any snow or water that happens during the winter is just going to go right down in there. These are juice containers. I don't remember what, maybe tomato juice, maybe prune juice. They are not my favorite, all right? So if you can see how the shape of these kind of gets a little skinny down here, if you end up cutting it too high, then where your plants are going to be small. You're going to have trouble getting them out, when you cut the middle of them. So you want to think about that. Like there are some I don't know. My son has terrible eating habits. Peanut butter filled pretzels. I get a lot of my containers from him. These are pretty good, you know, nice wide mouth. Because you've got to think about, I'm going to plant in here, but I got to get these things out, you know, and you want to resave, you want to save them, use them again. Nice pliable plastic. This thing will probably, you know, save 5, 6, 7 years, you'll be able to use it. The plants might grow up into here, so you know you may have to, you know, finagle a little bit to get the seedlings out. But these are great. This is a milk carton. Well, Carrie, that was something new. All right, and I love these. And the reason why I love them is because they're easy. They really don't last more than 1 year, but you I had that a little better. I'm going to have this out already. You cut the top off. You kind of keep that up. You could even keep the cap on if you wish. Cut the top off. Do your little holes. And then, you know, either put a hat on it or put it in a bag or something like that. The key is to create a greenhouse. And even though these are dark-sided, as long as the top is clear, you're going to be okay because the sun comes down like that. These are good, okay? They're very clear, right? And if you go through a lot of lettuce or you have turtles that eat a lot of lettuce, these are really good. Here's the problem with these is that they are so clear that when the springtime comes and your sun is heavier, or that's not a term, stronger. That's right. My sun will not be heavier. They'll burn if you're not careful. So, you know, in the winter, you can put these things wherever you want, but when the sun is stronger, you're going to need to kind of shake them a little bit so that they don't burn.
Carrie,
Yes, ma'am.
Down on that milk carton, how is that going to get moisture, right? Is it just through that little hole?
Nope, but that's a good question. Rochelle asked, hey, how's this going to get moisture? So if I put a shower cap on it, I'm going to have to cut some slits so that the snow and the ice can come in. Or if I put it in a baggie, I'm going to need to cut holes. And then it has holes on the bottom because what comes in's got to come out. If you don't, then the seeds will rot. But that's a good question. So you got to have a way for the water and the snow to come in and a way for the water to come out. Because otherwise everything will either not get moisture or it'll rot. Now, one thing that I tried new last year is I have this container. I think I bought it on Big Lots when they were doing a 20% off of everything. So we drilled holes in the bottom. We drilled holes on the top. You can see that this is used. I used it a couple of years. And I wanted to kind of segregate what I was growing in there. So I haven't cut these yet, but this is like the chicken broth containers. So I lopped off the top, made holes in the bottom, you know, filled them up pretty decently filled. And I planted squash in here. And the reason why I wanted to kind of do it in something like this is because then the material they got, you know, it's not going to, this container is not going to sit out and be reusable next year. But I was able to kind of peel off the bottom or maybe cut it and put it right in the ground so that cutworms and other things didn't really get to it. And I could wait a little longer into the spring so that my squash could grow a little bigger, but it wouldn't suffer transplant shock. So you could also, you know, try a tomato or tomatillo or a pepper or something and something like this. So it's still getting its greenhouse. Yes, ma'am.
You had multiple containers within that tote then? Okay.
Yeah. So I have a kind of a variety of a quart container and chicken broth and, you know, whatever else fit in there. And some people use bigger totes and they do the same thing. This is a kitty litter container. I don't really grow any food crops in these, although kitty litter is basically clay. Holes in the bottom, slit on the top, seal it with duct tape. For things that I wanted to grow with really deep roots before I transplanted them, I did them like this. I think the only one I haven't gone over is, these are from the Dollar Tree. These are, I bought these one year to use as a cloche, which I think is the right way to say that. Because I was going to start some pumpkins right in the ground and I was going to cover them with this to protect it. And kind of worked. But I found if I had something that I really wanted to really grow well and high and longer, this was a great container for me. Holes on the top, holes on the bottom, and then I lined up holes on the side and I put pipe cleaner through it to hold it together. Because if you try to tape it, it doesn't work. So really the purpose of going over all of this stuff is just to let you know that you can think outside the milk jug. A lot of our sites have people in Canada and they don't get their milk this way. So they're saying, now what do we do? You know, other than perhaps, I don't know. I mean, you can buy this stuff, but the principle is let's recycle what we can to use as the containers so that we can do that. So the principles are you're going to want something that is going to stand up to the ice and the snow and the varying temperatures. That's why I really like this. You know, you can tell I go through a lot of peanut butter, but that's why I like these because they're nice and clear. Control holes on the bottom, gives you some soil room and some headroom. It needs to be deep enough to allow, once the seed sprouts, it needs to have an area that the roots can grow so that the roots can really start to take off. I forgot my mother's Tupperware. I raided the attic one spring and this stuff was kind of like slimy, so we didn't want to use it anymore. But talk about tough. This doesn't do well in the shade. Why? Because it's thick and it's kind of darker. And I found that the light the stuff just kind of rotted. But in the sun, this thing is really good because it seems to be just enough, you know, to hold it in. And because it's so thick, it's Tupperware, kind of insulates it. So I decided to try it. Kind of too late. I can't give it back to her. Okay, so that's kind of the things that I have tried. I know one person had said, you know, gee, I've run out of containers, and they said, oh, well, then just plant in a baggie. Just get some of these hefty, and put your soil in, and you know, make some holes and seal it up and make some holes. And good for them. I didn't think it worked well. Didn't work well for me. I think that it just didn't seem to be able to get enough moisture. But then whatever was in stayed in and things tended to rot. So I'm not recommending it, but if it works for you, then that's cool. It works for you. All righty. All right, so the next question you're probably asking is, what can I grow? Winter snow method. What works best? And there are lists out there, lists that tell you what month to plant in, what you can grow. Essentially, In our area, I think we actually have it a little better. If we were in Texas and we were gonna winter sow, we could get some really warm weather so that everything's sprouted. And then right now, what are they having? They're having like 20-degree weather, and then everything dies. Up here, you're not going to get early germination. You can kind of peek inside these things in April, but I'd be surprised if you had much germinate in April. Things are going to germinate when Mother Nature thinks they should germinate. And it's really, you really don't have to do much. Some seeds require what we call stratification. And what that means is they've got a hard seed coat. And the natural way for them to germinate is to freeze and thaw, freeze and thaw, freeze and thaw. And that slowly works away at the seed coat. Some people like file the seeds a little bit to allow moisture to come in. I don't suppose I could ever be bothered to file a seed coat. And why would I need to? Because if it's outside in the winter, you're going to get like a 40-degree day that's going to heat this thing up, and then it'll fall back to 20 at night. And then, it might go back and forth with that process, and that's going to wick away very naturally at your seed coats. So things that often need stratification are a lot of your perennials, a lot of your native perennials, and maybe some self-seeding annuals. So if you think about your yard, you may have a plant that is an annual. And what an annual is something that dies every year. It grows, you plant it, it grows, it has seeds, and then it dies. And some people confuse a self-seeding annual with a perennial. A perennial is one where the roots develop, and what comes up is growth from the roots. A self-seeding annual is something where the roots die back, the seeds fall down, and the seeds themselves germinate. So any kind of flower that self-seeds is a great candidate for this, because all we're doing is what it's doing anyway, just kind of protecting it from, the rabbits eating the seeds or the birds or whatever. Perennials also work really well for this process. Just check the zone that they're in. I grow lots of lavender, but not all lavender. I only grow the lavender that is hardy to zone 5. We are 5B in this area. And sometimes I feel like Templeton's a little colder than the rest of the world, so maybe we're a little 5A. It goes all the way up to like the North Pole is a 1, and Vermont could be a 4. We're a 5A, Connecticut's a 6. So those are the USDA zones. So if you're going to plant a perennial, check your seed packet or, Google, and just make sure that it is hardy for the area that you want to do it in. So the first things I'm going to grow, like I have about 100 in the snow right now, and those are mainly herbs and perennials, things that need to have the stratification, things that need to, that are just lend themselves well to this process. At the end of February, I'm going to start some more basic annuals, things that I like to grow, like bachelor buttons and calendula, and I don't know, I like everything. So whatever I pick up, I'm going to try to grow it. So you can wait a little while. If you want to do a perennial that needs stratification, you need to think about doing that really soon, because you'll have February and March for your freezing time and a little bit of April. So that's about 10 weeks, and that's plenty. Plenty freezing time. But if you wait till like March, might not go as well. Self-seeding annuals you can do now, but you don't have to. You can wait a little while. So towards the end of February, I'll do some of those self-seeding annuals. And then when March comes, then I'm going to start to do tomatoes, tomatillos, some greens, maybe some kale, some Swiss chard, those kind of things, a little bit heartier vegetables, I will do then. I don't use this method for peppers. Lots of people do. Lots of people have great success. I must be doing something wrong because I don't have great success. So I'll do a few and they usually make it, but the majority I will do inside under grow lights. And were I to grow eggplants, I probably would do eggplants inside. But tomatillos and tomatoes, if you've ever had a garden and you've had a tomato and you've had a couple ripen and rot in your dirt, you are going to have tomatoes the next year because they're going to come up themselves. That's why they lend themselves so well to this process, because they naturally love to be out in kind of the in the snow and the whatever. You will get volunteers that way. I've never seen a pepper germinate from being rotted in the soil. I think they're more of a tropical plant. I will then, as April comes, April, I may still do tomatoes. That's when I would probably do my squash. If I was going to grow squash in containers, and the reason why I don't do it earlier is squash seeds sometimes have a tendency to rot. And the later I can do them and the more I can control them, the better it is. I had some really great looking squash and gourd plants last year. And they were so great looking that the rabbit that lives in my garden ate them all. So I have to rethink how I do this if I'm going to do that again, because I was a little bit disappointed at the planting.
Carrie,
Yes, ma'am.
are the times that you would plant different things in the booklet? Like
Are
the different
the-
months that you would plant different varieties of things?
Yeah, well, the different, like this flower versus that flower.
No, just generally the types of stuff.
Well, I do have on page 8.
I don't have it in front of me.
I have runner seats placed outside. This is not the Bible of winter sowing, but this is kind of things that I have kind of noticed. I still plant some stuff in May. One fun thing that I did this year is that I had some like flower baskets on my deck, and I took an outside flower basket, filled it with dirt, and planted some. I think there were like African daisies and marigolds and sunflowers and so forth. And I planted them and I put a bag over it. This was early May. I did the same with my basil. And then by the time I didn't have to worry about nighttime freezing, took the bag off, never transplanted it. They just stayed in the container I planted it in. So if you have like deck boxes or things like that, you can do that right on your deck. You can put the dirt in, put your seeds in, cover it with something to make it like a little greenhouse. And when those things sprout, once it's warm enough, you can just take the covering off and my goodness, there you are. You don't even have to transplant. It worked really well. I did petunias 1 year that way in like a hanging basket. Planted them like maybe May 1st, a little early for petunias. So I planted them, I covered them over with, I think, one leftover bags that you get, clear bag. And then by the end of May, they were sprouted, took the bag off, and they were really nice that year. I actually have, if you see on page 8 at the bottom, those were covered with little baggy hats. Some of the flowers that I grew on my deck. So here's the containers. We talked about the seeds. The next thing is the soil. All right. Yeah, my lovely assistant will hold up the bag. All right, this is called Happy Frog. I buy this at Agway. I bought it at Abishan. I bought it at this little place in downtown Westminster that happens to sell potentially cannabis paraphernalia. But anyway.
Looks good.
So there, you can put it down now. I love this stuff. Now, this is not cheap. This is a $24 bag. And if you're saying to yourself, well, I can go to the dollar store and I can get a pretty good bag of $1 dirt, that's exactly what you're getting, $1 dirt. If you think about, you know, for us to be healthy, we need to eat healthy. For our seeds to be healthy, they need to eat healthy. And you want, this is the part of the process that you just don't want to cheap on. You want to provide something that is nice and friable. You know what that means, right? That the roots can grow through it nicely. You don't want to have a big moisture agent in it. The reason being, for putting these things out in the snow and the water, and if you have a moisture agent, it's going to soak up that moisture and then it's going to freeze and then it may not drain well. So, so you kind of want to watch for that. Cheap soils often tend to have wonderful things like fungus gnats in them. And, you know, yeah, fungus gnats potentially can even be a pollinator, but they're kind of gross. So you don't really want to have that in your soil. You don't want to have a lot of wood in your soil. You know, some of the things that say, oh, great for container gardens, and you'll find there's big pieces of wood and so forth. This isn't quite as sustainable as maybe we would like. I think a lot of companies are trying to go to more of a coir. Hopefully I pronounced that right, C-O-I-R, which is a pineapple product. It's the fuzzy stuff on the outside of a, not a pineapple. Somebody should have stopped me. Coconut, right. I knew that didn't feel right. But you know that fuzzy stuff on the outside of a coconut, that's a sustainable product because you hopefully, you know, they're not cutting down lots of other trees to grow coconut trees, but they're a byproduct of the coconut. Whereas peat is something that they harvest that takes a long time to regenerate. So try to shy a little bit away from peat. Some people say, hey, you know, why don't I just go take a shovel and, you know, dig my garden and I got great soil and just throw it in the container. It's not going to drain as well. If you've ever kind of dug up some dirt from your garden and put it in a container, you'll notice that it's just not suited for a container. It might be great for your garden, but you really want to, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to look at bagged soil materials. That bag will do about 30-35 containers. So, you know, depending upon how much you're doing, that's not too bad. But that's just my word. I know there's a lot of people that aren't really too thrilled about the Miracle-Gro stuff because of some of the materials in it. And, you know, if it's the only thing that's in the store that you can buy, then buy it. But you can buy Happy Frog in smaller than a 2 cubic foot. And there's other products out there. Vermont Organics has stuff. Just kind of, you know, read the label and see. I forgot to mention one. These are to-go, salad to-go containers, you know, individual salad to-go containers. And I think this is my 3rd year on these, so they hold up really well. And these are for the stuff that I'm going to start probably late March. The sun kind of got to that one, kind of melted it, but because it doesn't have a lot of headroom, but these worked really well. I put them a little bit more in the shade. Sorry to digress like that, but all right, so may not have mentioned that generally they say give it 3 inches of soil and then the headroom necessary for what you're growing. So I tried an experiment of doing sunflowers last year. So 3 inches of soil. This is, I think almond milk comes in this. 3 inches of soil. And then it had a really nice area. In fact, they were coming out of the top because I was a little late transplanting them. But this worked really good. Something tall like this for sunflowers. If you're doing thyme, they don't grow very tall. So you don't have to have the same amount of headroom. Or if you're going to transplant fairly early in May, you don't need the same amount of headroom because you'll probably transplant before that. So why do we cut it like this? We leave a hinge. This is your milk jug. We cut it, I used to say 3/4, and that's not correct. It's like 15/16 around your container with a hinge. And we do that so that we can close it up and then tape it around. People like me that are a little bit lazy, we kind of like these because there's no cutting other than drilling on the bottom. You got to drill your holes so that the moisture can get out. But then I could just put something over the top, either with a rubber band or with tape or something, as long as it's clear and as long as I make a few holes so that the water can get in. These, part of why I like them is they are rugged plastic, and these things will last forever. So I can keep reusing and reusing and reusing. Part of why I don't like them is they are so hard to cut. I have a box cutter that that works pretty well, but I'm scared of it because I'm clumsy. So I kind of like things that I can cut with scissors because it's a lot less dangerous for me. But even this was a little bit hard with scissors. Danny kind of made it easier for me. He would drill 2 holes so that I could start and then end and have my nice little hinge that I would then tape back up. Why do you tape it? Gee, Carrie, why do you tape it? That's a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. It's a pain in the neck. However, to give it that greenhouse effect, I need to close that. I need to make it more airproof, I guess you could say. I mean, yeah, there's a hole here, water comes in, holes in the bottom, water goes out, but I need to tape the sides. Some people kind of make like 2 holes on a few places and then they tie it together with those pipe cleaners, and I just can't fathom having the patience to do that. Plus, it doesn't give you the good seal. But if you're in a warmer climate, maybe you don't need it to be sealed as well. So they talk about duct tape. I don't know, duck, whatever. First year I did this, I went to the dollar store and I bought duct tape. And it was the biggest pain in the neck to use because it would twirl and then I couldn't get it apart and it would be all over me. And it was not a fun experience. So I said, all right, I'm going to buy a good brand. And undoubtedly, Gorilla Tape, it's a great brand. But what's the problem that I was having with it is that it can be very hard. To open up things in the spring. It's so hard. Sometimes I don't even try to take it off. But you know, you're there holding it, and you know, at this point it's filled with wet soil and seeds, and then it's gotten over there, and swear words are involved. But people talk about using duct tape Does it give a great seal? Yeah, it's probably going to be there forever now. So this year I said, okay, I asked on the forum and they said, does painter's tape work? Because to me, you know, this seemed like a really good idea. You know, you can cut it with your fingers. And so I said, all right, I'm going to use painter's tape. And, you know, it was cheaper if you bought 6 rolls. So what did I do? I bought 6 rolls. And, you know, once again, I got soil and it's wet and I bought the 1 inch because I thought, gosh, you know, it's a small slit. The 1 inch must be good enough. And I was going around it like 3 times. So that didn't feel like a good idea. Oh, I'm not even gonna. Okay, so I said, well, I wonder if a thicker painter's tape would work. And lo and behold, I got the 1.88, so it's almost 2 inches. So much easier. I can't guarantee that this is going to have the same hold through the winter. I mean, one of the things about this is that sure isn't going to break open. But I just have this feeling, because other people have used it, that this is probably a better alternative to taping up your chunks. I have both of them here, you know, so whatever you think you want to use, you know, we can use either one of them. But imagine, here you are, you know, you've gotten, I don't know how many you're planting. Let's say you're doing 25 and you've planted them with the duct tape, and here it is spring, and you know, you've got your seedlings in there and you're like trying to dig this thing out. That's kind of why I don't prefer the duct tape, but you know, maybe if I didn't wrap it around 3 times, it wouldn't be so bad. I don't know where we got this, but this is a white duct tape. And one thing I noticed is that, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. You've got to label your plants. You are never going to remember what you've planted. Even if you think that you are an expert on what seeds look like or little seedlings look like, you are never, ever, ever going to remember. So the reason why I said this is that I found that I labeled some stuff and I had it on the outside, and it went through the winter and the summer, and it's still there. I may even have an example of that on one of these things. No, she probably didn't bring it. What do you know? Oh yeah, wild bergamot. So I labeled that last February, sat out in the sun, I mean the snow, then the sun, and then in my basement you can still read it. So the only disadvantage is if you're going to reuse the container, you know, you'll have to use another piece of tape, big deal, to put over, or only use that for wild bergamot, but probably won't do that. You have to label the containers, and you should have a redundant system so that if one fails, you've got one that works. Even though I labeled these on the outside, I had a label on the inside. So that just in case this didn't work, the one inside worked. You can use these. You can use popsicle sticks or these wonderful tongue depressors, you know, to label them. The one thing about wood is that it does rot, and sometimes it usually will hold up through the winter, but then when you plant it outside and you put that as your marker, by the time you go to see what it is, you can't tell because it's rotted and everything is faded off. So it kind of depends. If this is just necessary for you for the winter process, this will hold up fine. I don't hate me, but I use plastic. And then I put this in the bed because this will continue, and then I can pull it up and reuse it or whatever. So I use this. If you mark on it with a Sharpie, I can almost guarantee you it's going to fade, especially if you try to use a blue or a red Sharpie. It just doesn't hold up for the weather. There are some Sharpies that are more permanent than others. This says it's a permanent marker, but they all say that. My marker of choice is something called a garden marker, but people use grease pens or paint pens. Some people take their nice little nail polish and they nail polish. I don't wear nail polish, so I don't have any, but they use nail polish. Some people cut up old Venetian blinds and they say pencil works. I've never done that either. But you want to make sure you've got a system in place for remembering what the label is, what you've planted. And if I can offer a little bit of advice, when you put it in, make sure you can see it through your little hole on the top, because otherwise you're going to be wondering what's in there, and you like to peek at it and you like to, see how it's going. And if you don't put it, like if you put it over here, I might not be able to see it. And maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Okay.
Carrie, do we want to take a little stand-up break?
Sure.
Second, a little bio break if you guys
Yep.
want to. I don't know if everybody needs it, but sometimes it's nice to stand up. How are we
They all
feeling?
look like they're happy.
A little stretch together.
You don't want to see me stretch. It's just not pretty.
I just figured it's a little after 2, so we're probably in a good spot.
Facebook Live can see me stretching my.
Yeah, there we go. Also, did anyone need a pen that didn't need to bring one with them?
I haven't done
This, for the paper, something like this would, yeah, for the type of paper, something like this would be better. I bet, well, thank you.
Are you ready for winter to be over like I am? It doesn't normally bother me, but this year.
That's why I'm here, because I want to get started on
Absolutely.
figuring out how to start my garden, because it's, I always end up waiting. That's always the thing. And it ends up being Memorial Day weekend. Then I go out and I buy the plants at the garden store.
Exactly. So start some new habits. And absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a green growing here.
Wow.
So they don't burn. Yeah, I'll burn it just like church. Yeah.
Right here.
maybe, maybe. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think we're gonna start back up. I have some questions, so like Carrie said, feel free to type in when you want, I think, great.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention, about the holes in the bottom. Some people put holes on the side. Some of these containers have that. I think they were like my first year. Somebody said you have to, you don't. Holes on the bottom are fine, but like, one of my favorite tools that you can't find right now is an awl. And I like this guy, it's ergonomic. But there's no way I could pierce this thing, my awl. It's just, it's too rough. It's, well, for me, anyway. But on my milk carton, you know, it works great. My little holes in the bottom. So sometimes you have to use a drill. And we found these super nifty drill bits that are meant specially for plastic. I don't know what makes them different. However, they're not supposed to crack the plastic as much as a regular drill bit. So, and we like them so much, we're missing 2 of them. So, sure we'll find them.
How big's the whole thing?
You know, judging from my missing drill bits, I would say that it looks like we've used 1/4 to 5/16 drill bit. And I would say that that's probably what makes sense. But on here, you know, on a container like this, and I think I've used the awl and something like this as well. I'm just using the awl, so I don't know how big that is. Smaller holes, you probably need more of them. That's all. You want to have enough so that it can drain. If you put them out and you suddenly realize that you forgot the holes, don't despair. Just kind of, you know, figure out you still need to put the holes in, even if the soil is in there. I mean, it happens, but they have to have holes in the bottom. They've got to drain. So these things are double holed, you know, they're holed on the bottom, and each of these containers are going to have holes also. So they will drain into this, which will drain into the ground.
Carrie, perhaps you've already got it in the book, but I'm not sure. But is it sitting on, once it has the holes, is it sitting on the ground, in the snow, on grass?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So where do you put it? I mean, you do all this work. You got the soil, you got the seeds, you got the cover, you got the holes, you got everything, and then you go outside. And the ones that I put out so far, I put right on the snow, and then we got the snow, so they're buried. I don't even know where they are, which is great, and it's fun, and it's great because it's like a little insulating. One of the big mistakes that I made one year is I had a couple of big raised beds that they were like containers that I grew tomatoes in, and they were not good at draining, and especially when the weather got cold. So I put some containers on there and it never drained. So they were kind of like sitting in an ice puddle, and the majority of them rotted by the time I realized my mistake. So I had very low germination for that. You want to put them where they're safe, you know, so that they put them like in the middle of a windy area, they might get blown away. Some people have marauding dogs in their neighborhood that might carry them away. We don't have that problem. Putting them on the snow, especially if it's fairly level, works great. Putting them on the ground is great. Putting them on top of a table, if the table doesn't accumulate a lot of ice. I don't know where we got them, and I hope we didn't steal them. But they're, you know, when you have a truck and you have a lot of bread, and so you have these kind of like plastic things that are the breads on. Somehow we ended up with some of those, and we have them on top of a container, like those 100-gallon or 200-gallon containers. We've got those on top, so they drain nicely, and I put stuff way up there. And as long as they're not going to be sitting in either standing water or standing ice, in the winter, it doesn't really matter if they are in full sun or shade, as long as they have access to the snow and the rain. Don't put them under an overhang so that they don't get any snow or rain, because then they're going to dry out and they won't do well. But when the springtime comes, like I said, I had a bunch of these and they were darker and they were in a shaded place and they rotted. If I had moved this, so last year, hoping that I had learned from my error, I had them up where they got some nice sun, and these did very well. And I think, as I was mentioning to someone, these are great, you know, to start your greens. You could start your arugula and spinach and Swiss chard and all those wonderful things. However, when the day gets hotter and the sun is brighter, they will burn. So if you're not ready to transplant yet, if it's too early, you might want to put them closer to the house to get some shade. You shouldn't have to water any of this stuff once you put it out. It should, the natural snow and rain should be enough. Once you start to get to April, where we're not getting as much snow, and sometimes we get showers, sometimes we don't, you need to check them. And they said the way you check them is, if you pick this up and you're thinking, wow, that is really light, chances are it might be dry. And you might need to figure out a way, if it's not going to rain for a while, you might need to figure out a way to water it. At some point, when you get closer in May, so you're almost ready to transplant, you're going to want to take the covers off, just because they're probably going to be hardy enough, but maybe not hardy enough to sit alone in a little flower bed outside. Or maybe put the containers back on at night if it gets cold. I actually don't do that. I'm just like, you're on your own, guys, you know, hope you make it. I have read where people panic and they set these things out in the snow, and then we get a 20 degrees below zero night and they say, oh no, I really should bring them into the garage. Don't do it. Leave them alone. Leave them outside. You know, you're not gonna, you think about your self-seeding annuals. You're not picking up a big patch of dirt and bringing it into your garage. Leave it alone. Let Mother Nature take care of it. And some people in warmer climates, they get an early germination if we have a warm spell, and then it's going to go cold. They say, oh no, I'm going to lose all my seedlings. Almost never. Or if you lose some, there's always some seeds that didn't germinate. Don't go out there and cover them with blankets or bring them into your garage. Trust that they're going to be hardy enough. Give them tough love. Leave them alone. Let them stay out there. Just, you know, check for water or check for a burning or whatever. All right. We're going to actually plant today if people want to. Yes. All right. I've just about gone through all of this. All right. So one of the things that we're probably going to do in the kitchen is put some water in this dirt. Some people keep the dirt dry and they put it in their container, and then maybe they'll pack some snow in it or whatever, and then, you know, assume that they're going to get rain or snow. I've tried it both ways. The problem with putting the soil in dry is that usually after you add water to something, it starts to compact down. So once you put this outside and, you know, you get the snow and the water, you don't have the same soil depth that you had when you originally planted it. And it may not be enough to sustain your root structure. So if I were planting something deep like this, which I kind of brought it to tell you why I might not like using this, because the seeds are gonna like grow around here, and then I'm gonna have a hard time getting them out in the spring. So you wanna watch the kind of cover you have, unless I cut this and then make it a hinge. I could do that. I could, I might not. All right, so how much water do you add to the dirt? A lot of times, if I know that I'm going to be doing kind of a big amount the night before, I take my buckets that used to be used for maple syrup. You recognize these, yeah? They're from Tractor Supply. Guess you'll have to get new ones this year. I can fill the dirt pretty much up to the top and then pour the water in. It's not a science. I usually have it's usually a little bit too wet. So I'm probably going to make it drier for the purposes of not being too messy today. But we could always, give you guys little diapers to put on the bottom if it's too messy. But I use my little planting things, and I dump my dirt in and I sprinkle my seeds on, and most of the time I don't cover my seeds. Some seeds, like milkweed, absolutely have to have light to germinate. So if you were to shove those things in and cover them, they're not going to germinate as well because they need light. But a lot of the seeds we use are just so tiny that just the process of rain and snow is really going to kind of cover them anyway. So you don't need to, if you wanted to cover them a little bit, or if the seed were a little bigger, then you just take a little bit of dry dirt and put it on top after you've planted it. So take my container, I dump my dirt in, spread my seeds, label it, tape it, and throw it outside. That's all there is to it. So step one is that probably some of you are going to need holes on the bottom of your containers, and you're going to need to cut your 7/8 around. So I don't have a million tools up here, but it goes pretty quick. So I have some scissors. So if you want to start to jump right in, I don't think we'll need the drill unless you brought something that's really thick. I've got an auto, and I've got, if you promise to be careful, a cutter. So
You don't think we'll need the drill for the bottom?
excuse me.
Do you think we'll need the drill for the bottom, or do you think we'll be enough?
I have a I can take off here. All right. I need a big one. They want to see if I can just do more on my door. Yeah.
That was good, yeah.
I'll do it on the same
Mm.
Four is sufficient. You don't have to go on the side. And sometimes you don't want to let too much syrup.
I'll be honest, I like everything. I don't know if I'm planting it. Just to say, if you want any, let me know.
So wait, these are what you bought for this year?
No, these are all leftover from last year. I haven't got any for this year.
Good, like they
Wait, sometimes you store them a little. Like our house is freezing, so they just stay.
If it's coming around the circumference, try to get it kind of as close to the end
Oh, I'm serious. If you want a few of some stuff, just let me know. I was going to buy more seeds, and then I was like, I better see what I have left over. And I have so much left over that I'm just gonna. Oh, everybody else did. If I have to do the fifth one too, I've already done it.
And then some of the one we have to rescind, but kind of ran out of time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I wanted to make sure. Yeah. And yeah, no, we're fine.
You want to take some milk home?
I can give you a bit. Just take it home and hydrate it. Very good brand. Yeah, I think that's gonna make the most sense rather than what people were trying to say. Yeah. Just something for a couple. Yeah. So I'm gonna do this one. I want some way to make sure it's more. Yeah.
Is it still on?
No. Your live video has ended.
So end sign is on top, like,
Probably, yeah.
All right, so I'll